May 22nd, 2024. I think that we're at the point in the Trump's trial in New York where we've gotten through all the evidence now, such as it is, and we're beginning to get into the final phase. But of course, now we have a delay until what, next Tuesday, a week delay here. And I think it's becoming clear that there's a high probability that Trump was probably going to be convicted in this thing because this is a very unfair, rigged um, show trial. And so we'll have to see what actually happens. Now, I noticed that recently, even not just Fox, but even CNN has been taking the attitude that, the trial hasn't really been going that good for the prosecution in terms of the evidence. But we'll have to see how that goes. One problem that's clearly ahead for the Trump team is this Judge Meekum, who's a complete, uh, I mean, this is something like out of a Soviet show trial or something, kind of absurd situation where he's clearly totally in league with the prosecution. And when the prosecution witness was facing some major the last problems with this last witness, this guy just sustains every objection there and attacks the witness and so forth. So this is it's hard to know what's going to happen with the jury and all. I mean, we have a jury that's picked out of an area that's like what, about 85% Democrat voting in the last election. And so it's very unfriendly territory, and so we'll have to see how this comes out and what the implications are. Um, um, it is interesting that there are two lawyers on the case who obviously, from their legal background, realize how completely improper what's going on is. But the question is, even in their case, will they actually stand up for what's right, or will they stand up for what's politically in their interest? Because presumably they're Democrats, unless somehow a Trump supporter somehow slipped through the selection process and got on this jury, in which case things might be interesting. Then there's a clear chance for a hung jury. I mean, based on the facts that were been presented, I think we'd say acquittal would definitely be the case. In fact, it should even go to a jury if you had a fair judge. This case would be thrown out. But again, we don't have a fair judge, and we have a jury that's in a district definitely selected to be anti-Trump. So we'll have to see what the implications are here. But I think it looks to me like you're either going to get a conviction or you'll get a hung jury. And even if there's a hung jury, I have a feeling this judge is going to try to do anything he can to pressure the jury to come to a verdict. And I think I know what verdict he wants. So we'll see what happens there. But put it this way, it would take a determined individual, I think, to block this thing. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to be very happy to be wrong, of course, because if by any chance Trump were to actually be acquitted in this thing, this would be an incredible blow to the Democrats' effort. I mean, that would definitely vindicate everything that Trump's been saying about it, and because of a jury that's that biased against him actually still can't convict, that would be a problem. But I don't think that's the case. I think they still can, and I can explain why I think that's possible. By the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like. I'm always looking for new subscriptions. Obviously, you can click the bell for notifications for every new video. And of course, if you're a member of Rumble instead of here and just getting this through my social media links, then you can subscribe on Rumble, because I post there as well. Yeah. So again, we really love to have an acquittal here, but I'm just, the way that thing ended up, and that people think that one reason why they're not going immediately to having instructions on a jury deliberation is they kind of want the jury to be separated from just how bad the case was before they come back and hopefully socialize with people. Although not supposed to discuss the case or watch any news, the theory is that they will come under people that are thinking one thing or another. However, who knows how it will go? I mean, how people are reacting out there in liberal land. But remember, that's where we are here mostly, is in liberal land. So, it's not like the people that we're associated with and what they would think about it. So anyway, so that's kind of it. Now, then we get to the next issue. Assuming that the worst case scenario, and not improbable, that Trump is convicted, then what happens next? And that's where it gets very, very interesting. Because if he is convicted, obviously Trump is going to appeal. But the big issue is always in a case like that is the sentencing. Because before you get to the appellate part of it, there's the sentencing. And presumably he's going to be sentenced to prison if he's convicted, and because this is now a pseudo felony. And we could get into a little bit about what's really wrong with this whole thing on the case. For one thing, even to this point, as I understand, they haven't specified what the charge is that would actually elevate this to a felony yet, or present evidence for that. And in fact, as I understand that, they're not even really given they're going to be given some instructions which allow the jury to decide things that really should be in the instructions. So the jury is going to have free rein to come up with a guilty verdict for whatever reason they concoct, apparently, as I understand it at this point. We'll maybe know a little bit more later, but that's what I'm hearing, that this sounds like totally, very appealable. But the point is, if he is convicted, and again, this is a show trial. This isn't a fair trial, I don't think. You're going to have the sentence, and if he's sentenced to prison, then the next question is going to be, will he be out on bail? How big will the bail be? I mean, they've already tied up something like almost 200 and what would it be, 60 some $1 million so far. Oh, but at any rate, it would be on out on bail, or will he say no? Your likelihood of a successful appeal is so small, we're going to send you right to jail right now. And I wouldn't put it past this corrupt judge to do something like that. And I think that's now there's reasons why he might do it and reasons why he might not do it. The reason why he might do it is because he wants to, because he's a bad guy. Let me tell you that. So, okay. The one reason why he might not do it, if he's thinking a little bit rational about things, is that this will bring a federal issue into it, which otherwise might not occur until it went through the entire state of New York court system first. And that is that he's entitled to Secret Service protection. So how will, in this incarceration, how will he be provided Secret Service protection? And if the judge decides to deny him that, then he will obviously be making an appeal to federal court, I presume, as more expeditiously. In fact, even the Secret Service might get into this. This will be interesting how that goes down with the Biden administration and everything. But I think he at least will make an appeal all the way to federal court to intervene. And if he actually is thrown in jail while waiting these verdicts, I think it might get elevated to the Supreme Court faster than any other way. And that may be the first court you're really going to hit that's going to be fair, frankly. I mean, given that you're dealing with even the federal courts in New York are probably liberal, then the next level you get to, the appellate court's probably liberal. So when you get that's why you need to get to the Supreme Court potentially, and even the first person on that's probably one of the leftist judges. I can't recall who it is, but the Supreme Court might decide to free him from jail and order and basically order him to be free while pending this appeal. And it's even possible that if he gets the audience at that level, it might get to the level where, this is speculating, where the full impropriety of mixing a federal charge in with the the state misdemeanor, which has already passed the statute of limitations, might also get an expedited hearing and decide to shoot the whole thing down. And because of that possibility, I think the judge is a little bit shrewd, not just sinister. He might very well leave him out on bail and probably try to set some ludicrous bail or something. I don't give this thing any credit at all for being fair. Let's put it that way. So anyhow, I just kind of want to kind of go through what I think about this subject. I mean, the other thing I think will be kind of interesting, since they haven't at this point really specified yet, maybe they will in the final judge instructions. And I'm sure that whatever the instructions will probably be biased toward the prosecution, of course. Will they finally specify what actual additional felony crime that he committed that would elevate these to a felony situation? I mean, that's an interesting question. Of course, the whole thing is bogus to begin with, because even as a misdemeanor, it's bogus because they were charged with legal expenses, and negotiating a non-disclosure agreement is a legal expense. What was it supposed to be put under? Hush money? I mean, what category does it have to go in? How explicit does that category have to be? After all, I mean, your accounting system has different categories of expenses, all sorts of things, utilities and whatever, clerical and whatever, all kind of different expenses, interest, whatever, and then but one would be legal. And this, to me, looks eminently a legal expense. So the idea that there's anything fraudulent at all is probably completely bogus. But add to the fact, of course, they wouldn't allow him to have an expert on the federal campaign finance law to come in to explain why there wasn't a violation of that law in this case. And this judge blocked that and wouldn't let that witness testify. You can see just how completely garbage this whole thing really is. So we'll have to see what happens. We can only hope that the jury is smarter than the judge, and somehow they'll get exposed to enough idea that just how bogus this thing is, that even though they're biased, they won't do it. Or maybe somebody on there will at least hang the jury. That even has its own downside, which I had previously mentioned and other comment. I can't recall whether that was on X or whether it was on one of the videos. But I do think that there's a case to be made that even a hung jury can be kind of bad, in the sense that, well, what you do then, you have another trial. Does he have to go through another several weeks of this garbage right in the middle of the campaign? When does that get scheduled? In the fall? I mean, you see what I'm getting at. This could be this ongoing death by 1,000 cuts that they've got organized, Now, in other areas, I think we're doing pretty good. It looks like things are kind of unraveled in the Georgia case. The Supreme Court currently has put the hold on the D.C. case and may actually shoot down some of the charges in a separate case about the law they're using and the way they're abusing it. And of course, my favorite idea in there would be that the Supreme Court would simply refuse to issue an early ruling on the immunity case, but simply continue to discuss it and not issue a ruling till maybe later in the fall or even after the election. Because after all, if you give total immunity, guess what? Biden would have total immunity too, and who knows what he would do with it in the months left. You can see how that could be. So that's another problem. And then, of course, we have an indefinite extension of the Florida documents case, and I think so many bad things are coming out about that, one of which is not the thing that's being touted today. That's nonsense. But the thing about the use of lethal force, no, that's just boilerplate on almost all these raids they do. I mean, the feds like to turn these into paramilitary events when they do them. And they knew the Secret Service was in there, so if anybody was going to offer any resistance at all, it'd be the Secret Service. It wouldn't be an employee or Trump or the Trump family that would do it. So I don't think there was any likelihood this was like MTG has the idea of it being an attempt to assassinate Trump. That's not what it was. That's just boilerplate. But the thing is that it does look like there's so many questions have come out about the way they've handled evidence in the case and other issues that thing may really not get going until much later, maybe also put off to after the election. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I think that there's some real decision points are coming up on this case, and we'll have to stay tuned in to see how that actually impacts the case. Like I say, hopeful thinking would be that he'd just be acquitted, but because it should be, but then it shouldn't even go to a jury in the first place. The whole case should be dismissed, but it should never even happen in the first place. But given where you are, I mean, I, I'm skeptical. So, at any rate, that'll be all for this time. I'll, of course, as always, be posting this on the YouTube and Rumble, and I'll post the addresses of my social media accounts in the description below. I quite frequently post updates to whatever I'm thinking at the moment on X, so you can find those there. All for now.